Let's draw some shit. So do you guys have any questions out the gate on kind of how to create a stencil or how to do that kind of stuff? Or you're just kind of watching the process, see where we go? Valid. So somebody give me an idea. Give me something. Because I honestly, without an idea, I'll be sitting here for fucking days trying to find some shit.
Well, you know her best. So what does she like? What does she hate? That's where I
Fucking.
always start.
So she doesn't like. So as funny as it is, she went to Florida for a little bit and she loves the water. She loves the beach. That's just shit that she kind of grew up with. But she hates water tattoos. She doesn't like putting an octopus or a shark or a fish or anything on her. It makes no goddamn sense. She's laughing right now. Funny to her, I fucking hate it. So we live on a farm right now. She grew up in the tire industry. Her family owns a tire company. I don't know what to fucking put on her, man. I'm not putting a fucking tractor on this motherfucker. So she wants me to do whatever. So if she wants me to do whatever, I like that LA Chicano style. That's just the type of shit I'm into right now. That's the type of long hair. Hey, it was mine. It's some bullshit. That's the type of shit she likes, right? So what I can do is I can hop on Pinterest. I find all my references on Pinterest, or I find them. I use AI to generate shit, which is another thing. But like something like this, if it wasn't such shitty quality, could be used in the Chicano style, leg sleeve, arm sleeve, whatever. This one, I actually used this hat in a different tattoo I just did. So I used this reference already. This could be used. I don't like the lips. That detail's not going to look good on skin. How do you determine what is and is not going to be on skin? You want to say that louder? I know it's wrong. Okay, so my girl said, how do you determine what's going to look good and not good on skin? I'm very high detail with the stuff that I like to do. I like to get as much detail as possible. I want people to look at my work and think, oh, fuck, like, I feel like I could touch the motherfucker. It's right there. Like, I want that shit to be clean. There's certain detail you want. There's certain detail you don't want. Like, if I'm looking at the lips, you want to think what is going to last over time and what's going to look attractive over time. This, to me, tattooing that over time, if you don't put the blacks in the right place, that's probably going to look like a fucking asshole, if I'm being honest. So it's not going to last over time. There is high detail, but is that where you want the detail to be focused, right? Not really. So some photos that I would say we can work with, like I got these the other day, right? So I found, which one do I want to go with? I'll go with this one. So this photo is crystal fucking clear. I like this photo a lot. The detail is there. Bless you. You can zoom in. You can still see the marks or the actual little like texture of the skin. Like it's there, right? It's a little pixelated, but it's there. So if you want a hyper realistic feel, this is it. However, if I'm going with some sort of leg sleeve, I don't know if I would personally use this image. You're missing the top here. You're gonna have to create. You're missing this here. You're gonna have to create however you want to put it. This I can see going really well with someone like, what's his name? Walter Montero. Walter Montero is an artist over in Europe. And I think he would use this reference, no doubt. And what he does partial black and gray, partial full color. This would be phenomenal for him. For me, for black and gray, it's there. To me, all of this is too monotone. It's just one shade of gray. There's not enough there. I can go here, take the curves. So what I'll do to change it also off of every one, I'll go to curves right here. The first one you bring up, it makes everything lighter. All right. The further down you go, the lighter it gets. I will typically stay within the first two columns if I'm using it to brighten shit up, essentially. So with this, I'll go like right here. And then the second one I use in these two columns is going to make everything else a little bit darker. All right. So it's just a higher contrast, essentially. I don't do anything crazy. That's about it. Even with this, I can see the changes in tone from here to about here. I could tell that this tone is different from this tone, it's different from this tone. But on skin, you're gonna have to elevate that crazy. Like you're gonna have to OD the shit out of it in order for you to see that difference on skin. So I don't like that about this photo. Same thing with over here. The shape of the nose is here, but there's not enough contrasting factors for that shape to be very clearly defined on skin. For me, I would have to toss something through the image to create some motion and some flow coming through. Possibly put like a hand in here on this side. Yes, in other words, I could use this. I'm not feeling it. It's too much. It's too much time invested for something I can't guarantee that I love right now. So with me testing shit out, if I wasn't doing this to show you guys, I'd probably fuck with this image for 2-3 hours and then look into something else to find out 2-3 hours was wasted. Like the reference photo, I tell all my clients, finding the right reference photo can take just as long, and drawing up the stencil can take just as long as the actual tattoo. It can take me 4 hours before the appointment to figure all this out, and then take me 4 hours to tattoo. The reference photo, your tattoo is never gonna be more clear than the reference photo you find. That's what I was taught. That's how I see it. So,
like brushes or anything, like brush sets.
Brush sets. So, brush sets and shit. I actually use. I'll show you. Okay, so the brush I use all the time is this technical pen, and I made my own. And the only difference I made to it is the streamline. So I don't like the technical pen, the regular one, because it's so sharp. If you see, it just hits. It curves exactly where I put my pen, which I know you're saying that's probably what you want, but it's very difficult to get smooth lines. See that little jitter right there? I didn't even move my fucking hand. It just slid across the counter weird. I don't like that. So I streamline the shit out of it. I think I do like 55, 56% typically, and it'll round those corners. So when you're creating a stencil, it's much easier to get a smooth curve. But even if you don't like that, even if you use the regular pen, like that compared to, let me actually create a new one. Like this with the technical pen compared to this with the one I created. It's just way smoother for me, right? So even if you don't like that, you don't want to use streamline, if you hold the pen, it locks in that curve. All right, so you can change it up, and if you don't like that curve, if you click edit, you can now change the curve whichever way you want. And to anybody beginning or doesn't have a crazy amount of experience with Procreate, I know this could be useful. For anybody else that uses it day to day, this is probably redundant information, but that is what you can do, right? So you can fuck around with it all day. Same thing with circles. If you hit a circle, hold it. All I'm doing is just holding my pen down. If you take another finger and put it on the screen, it'll turn it into a perfect circle. All right. This is like Procreate 101 shit. So if this isn't the type of stuff that you know, I'll find videos on YouTube and I'll send it in the chat so you guys can kind of watch that, because there's a lot of tips and tricks I don't even fucking know that I'm learning every day. This is probably going to be the most useful when actually drawing a stencil. And I'm very keen on, if it takes you an hour or an hour and a half to draw a stencil, fucking do it. Your stencil is everything. All right. So I'm going to find a photo so we can actually fucking stencil. The one that I like enough to stencil. Also, if there's anything specific you want me to stencil that's not a portrait, tell me, because I'll find a photo right now and we'll run through it. I'm cool with it. If we go through, let's see, I should probably create a folder for all these fucking references. If I go with, let's go this one here.
Can you do some like words? That makes sense.
Words?
Yeah, I do like a lot of script work. That's why.
Okay, so you want to take fonts off of like Pinterest and kind of run that, or do you want to actually go with a font?
Like the font from Pinterest is fine.
I bet. So what kind of font you want to run?
I don't know, just something like off the wall. I just normally type in fonts and then whatever first thing that pops up is what I go with that I haven't used already.
Okay, let's run this and let's look. You tell me when to stop. Whenever you see something.
The third one, you can just do the third one.
Third one in this one?
Yeah.
All right. So what I'll do, you can go a couple routes with it. So what I'll do is I'll do this. So, well, somebody give me a word. Don't make it dumb long either. Don't give me a fucking crazy word. He's ready some bullshit.
Do your dog's name.
Got facts. So what I'll do, I'll use the grid. I'll pick a color that I'm not drawing with or one that just pops out. Make that shit bright. I'll take the image and I won't like do this to kind of resize it because then you're fucking with whether or not it's level. And I don't want to do that. So I specifically use the corners to resize it because at least I know it's in line with the grid. So if we go, where the fuck is the K? Am I retarded? No, we're not. Right here. All right. So if I'm running, let's go size 2. Let's rock with this. All right. So what I'll do is I'll create different layers. So for me, at least, I'll start with one layer, do one letter, second layer, another letter, third layer, different letter. So each letter has its own layer. But I'm going to take it directly off this, and I'm just going to follow. Obviously, anywhere from here up on this one, you're going to have to create your own shit. But if you just have the basic set of pens on here, like basic set of brushes, what I do, I'll just keep it in line with everything. So I'll hold this down, the same thing on the other side, and I'll just outline the outside line of every letter. So I'll create that basic outline. All right, and I'll just do that through the whole thing. So like on a curve like this, I'll redo this curve a million times if I don't like exactly how it is. And if I never get it exactly how I want it, like if none of them are good, I'll stop and I'll see the curves. So I'll go straight line. I'll line this line up with the straightest line that's there. Like that. I'm going to create a different layer now. Now I'm going to create the curve coming off of this. So I'm going to start. I'll actually use different colors so you can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm going to start in this line. And I'm going to finish following the curve. All right. And once I have that, I'll go back to the original layer. I'll erase wherever they meet. I'll erase wherever they meet. I'll go back here and I'll lead this right into it. So it's just a smooth fucking line. That's just how I work with outlining letters and shit like that. But I also have different fonts, or not different fonts. I have different packs like this, like out of a graffiti pack. So like you can have anything. If you just search for the shit on Etsy, you can find whatever fucking pen you need. So for fonts like that are clearly used with some sort of more of like a calligraphy kind of style, I had a pen. I actually think it's on my other iPad. I don't have it now, but you can create pens too. It's very easy to create a pen. But like this, I used to have a pen like this, essentially, that only had the outside lines and there was no inside, but it kept the angle. So I set the angle across and I had the outside lines set. So if I was following this stencil, it would be super fucking easy for me to outline this pretty much. It would take a fucking 20-minute process and turn it into 5 minutes. So The problem, not the problem, but the issue. Go ahead. I thought someone said something. My fault. If there is, you got to find the angle. That's the only issue with using the pens on this. You got to find the right angle. Like that is a little bit too much. So you got to rotate the screen to find it. So that would be roughly the right angle. And I'll create this pen and I'll send it to you guys so you have it. But essentially, you just follow it. These pens aren't even the fucking best, but you could straight line it and then line that bitch up. And I know my buddy, he even will take the eraser and go down dead center middle of it and take out the inner lines. So at least you know all the lines you do are evenly spaced and they're accurate to the actual letter or the actual font. So if I want this font, what I'll do is I'll outline every single letter and I'll kind of put them in line. So I'll have like, I'll outline the A. Where's it at? I'll outline the A. Well, I'm not even start with the A because half of that bitch is gone. Like I'll start with the B. I'll outline the B. And also, if you're doing the font, if you don't like anything, make those changes. Your client's coming to you because they trust what you can do. If you find a fucking font off Pinterest, use your creativity and fuck with it. It doesn't have to be exactly how you find it. Use your creativity to your advantage. What I'll do is I'll line all these up. And I'll create multiple layers. So this one, I'm going to do the first layer in red, outlining it the best that I can and kind of keeping these overlapping. And then I'll run a second layer in a different color, or I'll do the same color and change the opacity or opacity. I actually don't know how to say that word properly, so don't fucking kill me on that one. But I'll change the opacity to it. I'll use the same color and just go through it. So I'll come through like this. And I'll just create each individual line coming through. There's other ways to do it. The easiest way to do it, honestly, is to find the font online and download the font. Easiest way to do it, find it, download it instead of having to redraw every single one that you do. And plus, then you'll have a full catalog of fonts you can offer to all your clients. So if you want to kind of stick with calligraphy and do more calligraphy work and be more of a calligraphy artist, if you do a lot of fonts like that, I would download all the fonts that you use and go from there. Because then you have them all in your files. So you never got to search for it again. It's like, oh, I've done that font before. I just got to find it. If you have it, you can just scroll through your fucking fonts on the side. Because then you can just add text. And then you have whatever fonts. And then you have whatever fucking font you want. So I have all the basic fonts, but then you can have like this font, or you can have basic cursive fonts. Like for me, I have, do I have? Yeah. So like I have this, right? So the easiest way to go about it, I would say, this is what I always do when it comes down to it. If we're doing this, it's like as a dog's name, you can also, I'm gonna change the color to the shit. Let me make sure I remember how to do this because I haven't done this in a while. Or no, I don't even gotta do that. Never mind. Wait a second. If you have the font, you can go in here, you can create the outline from it. And then there's a way to edit how much of the outline there is. I don't remember how to fucking change the settings with that though. Hold on. I'm gonna fuck with the settings on this and figure that out on my own time, so I'm not wasting yours. But if you run the outline through the font itself, it'll create the outline for you. If you don't like doing that, what I was gonna do is this. You can rasterize it. what I'll do is I'll do something like this. It used to be doing something like this. Might have to blur it more, but doing something like this, I'm gonna fuck with it so I can actually fucking remember exactly how to run it. If you do something like that, you'll have the outline done. This is a little bit too thin, so I didn't think I'd blurred it enough, but you have that outline now. And that's directly from the font itself. But this is way too thin to actually run on a stencil. So I'm gonna figure out exactly how I did this because I showed one of my artists how to do this shit like 2 weeks ago. And he still does it. So you can run something like that. What I'll do is I'll either keep duplicating the shit and create that thicker line. And then you'll have, like, this is the easiest way to go about it if you're doing fine line. So the actual stencil line isn't thicker than the needle you're using because those lines have to be very, very thin. But this is how I'd normally do it. I'd normally run it from the font after I downloaded it. If I run it from Pinterest, this is the direction I'm going. I'm outlining everything. I'm not going to do the whole thing, the whole letter right now. But essentially what I do is that. And on the next layer, I'll come in with a different color. And now I'll start to build off this. And now I'll start to build off this. So like here, I can just follow this line coming through. And then to see exactly where that cutout is, I'll now bring this through here. I'll take my time with it. Now I know where to start and stop on the straight line. Same thing over here. This starts here. Bring it through. Have this come out. I don't like that. Like that. And then straight line it same way as last time. And then essentially do it until it's fucking perfect. Like me, my mind is so meticulous with everything I do. This is the way that I used to run it off Pinterest. And then I just took the route of finding the font, downloading the font, and then going from there. Defont.com, 1001 fonts works really well. It's all free downloads. Their selection is very repetitive and their search engine isn't the best, but defont.com, like Anna Rita just put in the chat, and 1001 fonts, which I'll put in there. Both of those are very good places to find fonts. So that's what I would do for any sort of lettering of any form if you're not doing it by hand. Which me, I haven't learned long enough to actually fucking put that shit on you with marker and make sure everything's fucking perfect. So until I have like a year experience more than what I currently have, I'm not going to be drawing that shit on skin. But I do have a lot of calligraphy artists that I could probably get some knowledge out of if that's something you guys would be interested in. I have a lot of resources. So anything I can't do, I have people that can. So let's see. Did that kind of help? Did that kind of toss you in the right direction?
Yeah, it did.
Fire. I'm going to figure out how to do that exact stencil without having to hand stencil it out. I just got to I got to mess with it for a little bit and then figure that out. It's been a while since I've done lettering like that. Typically, I just use my fonts.
Gosh, I'm like,
Absolutely. See, that's a little bit blurry. It's not as clear as I'd want. I'm also not going to rule out any photo until I mess with it a little bit. So like this photo, for me, it's okay. I don't really like the hair that much. It's very, very dark in here, and that's not really what I want. But I'm always going to mess with it before I rule it out. So what I like on this are the highlights. The highlights are very, very pronounced. I like that a lot. Because on skin, you're going to have to do really you're gonna have to do really high contrast to get that shit to pop how you want on skin and make it last for years and years and years. So you're gonna have to emphasize that white, but you don't want to put too much. So I'm most likely not going to do anything lower than this line. So what I'm going to do is fuck with it since I'm black and gray. I'm going to fuck with it a little bit. I kind of want the tones to be a little bit more pronounced in the face. So if I go too high, it's a little bit too white. Way too much skin tone in this sense. So I drag it back down a little bit. Now, for me, I would consider using this because I actually don't mind this at all. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fuck with it a little bit and kind of make my own little changes to it. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'd be lying to you if I did it that way. I typically duplicate the image and I'll fuck with this image. I'll mess with it a little bit. Go ahead.
Let RJ back in the meeting. He told me he's in the waiting room.
Yeah, because I fucking did it on this.
Okay.
Fuck, how long has he been in there? God damn it.
He told me a minute, bro.
God damn it. He's just sitting there like fucking swinging his feet. He's like,
oh, yeah, there you
go. My fault, dog. So if we're running this, I like to use the airbrushing on any sort of alterations I'm making. For me, I like brightening up the eyes a little bit. I'm very light when I do it the first time around. And I'll come through. Actually, I don't even know if it's the brightest white. I guess it is. I'll come through here, make very gentle, like marks. Probably help if you guys could see the fucking pen, actually. Hold on. Let me see if I can fuck with the settings real quick now that I'm thinking about it. Fucking hate that. All right, yeah. Can you guys see kind of where my pen is before I do it now?
Yeah.
All right. So hopefully, I mean, obviously, don't help in the fucking white spots. So that's good. But we'll fuck around with it. So what I'll do is I'll put the highlights where I kind of want them, and then I'll blend it together. All of which I'm using the soft brush for. Or with this, it should be on soft blend. And then I'll bring it down. Also, for all of you that don't know, you see in there how it says the 2% size. That size of the brush in that box is the exact size it's going to be. That kind of makes sense? So if you're wondering how big the brush head is going to be, that's the size. So once I set it there, that is the exact size that it is. That kind of makes sense? That could have been something you kind of knew based off common sense. I'll tell you right now. I didn't know until like a week ago that that's how that fucking worked. So, but I'll blend it as much as possible to come in. If I don't like it, I'll come back in with a little bit more white and fuck with it. Be very gentle with it. All right, so I'll mess around with that. Because I don't want it to be too pronounced. Just highlight a little bit. I'm in here now. And what I'm doing is I'm like tapping kind of like this. I'm coming in and like barely touching. I'm not like scribbling. I'm like tapping how I would if I were to tattoo it, kind of, just because that's how I get that lightness that I'm looking for. Here, I'm going to be a little bit more heavy on it because I want that brightness in the eye, just the way that I kind of do my eyes. I like it. I like for them to glow. So I'll do some shit like this, but I want to emphasize that a little bit as well. So I'll alter it way more beforehand, so I know it'll come out how I want it to on skin, because you got to change shit, but it takes time to kind of realize how you like it. So like this, just make it lighter. So that for me, that's how I want the eye to be. Because now it's just popping the fuck out. That's what I like. I want the attention to go to the eyes, and I want the attention to go to the lips. For me, at least, that's how I want it. So anything I do to that eye, I'm gonna do the same thing to the other eye. I'm gonna come through. And if you're doing this, like if you decide to do the exact same thing to the eye, the two things I would keep in mind are where the shadows are. So like this shadow, okay, I'm not doing that. The shadow is like right here, roughly. So I don't want to make it.
Driver's seat belt.
Say again. Miss something. But then I'll drag this up. But I can also drag this down a little bit. And that's kind of the reason I kind of play with it on the same layer as the photo, because if you need to blend like this, you can still blend those natural tones. Where if you blended it on a layer above, you can't blend the tone underneath. So that's why I like to do it on the same photo. A lot of stuff I do like to emphasize a lot. So like the lips, I'll emphasize just a little bit, nothing crazy, just the light spots. I'll get in and I'll touch up. But again, you don't want too much white because that's going to take the realism out of the piece. If there's too many highlights, unless you're really good at what you're doing, you make it look like wet. It's not. You're going to OD it, and it takes a while to learn that. So if you're just beginning, you don't want to OD the white highlights. But for me, I know how it's going to act on skin, and I know I'm going to want all of this a little bit brighter to clearly identify certain curves in the face, certain spots, because certain spots are a little bit gray for my liking. All right.
When you're doing white, do you prefer to use like a mag or a round shader?
Kind of depends. Kind of depends on the piece and where you have to put white. Like if I am doing here, for instance, if I'm doing this spot, okay, hold on, I'm sorry. If I'm doing this spot right here, or nope, right here, for instance, if I want to use white in all of this, I'm going to use a mag and I'm going to pendulum the shit out of it. All right, so that's what I'm going to do because I want a smooth fade here and here for me. And then if I'm running it this way and this way, if the mag is coming here, I'm going to want to fade out here and here because you don't want just a block of white, right? But if I'm doing, honestly, if I'm doing white here, I'm going to take the white and I'm going to be dotting it with my liner.
Okay.
Because that's also going to give a realistic texture to that spot. So that's kind of how I go about it. I kind of feel it out as I'm doing it. I don't have any specific rules to white. The only rules I have is don't put too much where it doesn't belong, thinking it's going to make it more realistic. Kind of makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Fire. So one thing I do when I'm stenciling, I use hard lines and I dot where my tones and shades change. So I'll line or I'll outline the actual, how do I say, I just had the word in my fucking head and I lost it. Any shapes or hard shapes, I outline. So the jaw here, anything that is separate from something behind it is a hard line for me. So if the nose is here, even though the tone is relatively the same here, I never want to look at my nose again. Even though that's a relative same shade from here to here, I'm still going to hard outline right here and right here to define the shape of the nose. That kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I could probably word it a lot better. But right here, like I'll outline the bottom of the lips because those are two different objects in my head. I guess it's one face, but there are different objects in my head and how I'm running it. So the face is in front of the hair. So I'm going to hard outline this because there's really no blending that has to go on from face to hair.
And same would go for the nose holes, right?
Correct. Yep. So I'm going to come through. I'm going to come here on the jaw. Pause. I'm going to go there. I'm going to bring all this through. Huh? Of course I said pause. Zoom or not, if you say something gay, it's gay. You got to pause the shit.
Wasn't gay till you said pause.
Huh?
It wasn't gay till you said pause.
Nah. Listen, if you hung out with the people I hang out with, you got to protect yourself at all times. So that's where the jaw is for me. Even though there really is no change in tone here to here, I would say here to here, there's really no change in tone through this. I'm still creating that line for the jaw. This is where your mind and your creativity is going to come into play because you have a very, very light highlight here. I don't know if you guys can see the change in tone from here to here, but I have that little light highlight underneath that jaw that I'm going to take into account when I'm tattooing it. So that is going to be a dotted line for me. And I'm going to bring it up a little bit because with how thin that is, you're not going to be able to tell on skin. I'm going to bring that all the way through to about here. Once I get to this tone change, I'm dotting that out. I'm going to dot this out right here. These are different tones. And this comes up. Also, zoom out and zoom in. Because if you're zoomed in doing this, you're not going to notice how drastic this changes. Once you zoom out, you see it. A lot of people like to draw stencils on, like they'll print the paper out. They'll put the paper on stencil paper and then they'll trace on the paper itself. So then you're placing your hand-drawn stencil onto the skin, exact reference of what you're doing. Exact size, exact reference. To get more detail, I like zooming in. I like getting everything. So if I'm here, I'm accounting for all shades and tones, right? And what I do is my eye is better at seeing essentially the darker tones from the light. But if you have trouble basically identifying the darker tones from the light, you can start by identifying the lighter tones. So you can start a stencil by doing this instead of tracing out this. That kind of makes sense? Wherever your eye goes first, just build off. You don't got to stick with one thing. Like I'm doing the jaw now, but I'll probably end up going up here and hitting this because that's just what popped out for me. You know what I mean? So you can run whatever direction you want. Just because I'm starting with the jaw doesn't mean you got to start with the jaw. Just because I start with the darker tones does not mean you have to start with the darker tones. This is just how I very clearly see what I'm creating, essentially. The map that I'm creating, this is how I do it. But not everybody's process is going to be the same. So I'm going to come through here. So right here, I'm sticking with the lighter tone, right? So I can come through and do that, or I can come here and go that way. I'm gonna go that way. And since this is so defined, I would rather hit the lighter tone that I might not see exactly where it's at later on. Since my eye's on it, I'm gonna hit the tone that's harder to essentially change or catch later. There's a light outline underneath here. I'm gonna come in here with it as well. So now, white highlights, you can solid outline it for white highlights because you don't really need to focus on blending crazy there. That's either going to be pure skin tone or you're just going to add white highlights to it. So that I'll fuck around with both ways. Create this. Like right here on the lip. I'm going to solid outline it. Same thing here. A solid outline it. Yeah. And I would say the biggest thing for portraits for me, even if it's not here, I like to leave a light spot right here. Leaving a light spot right here defines the lips and the actual facial structure so much more than you think. So I'll leave a little circle of just skin tone. Right in here. That spot, I have a reference photo of it, which I'll show you guys, but that spot defines the lip shape and the cheek so much better. Just that little spot. If you blend that, it's so much flatter than you think. And one of my boys taught me that probably 2 months ago. Hard outline the bottom of the lip. Over here, I'm not going to hard outline because it's difficult to see the change in tone, so that's lighter than it should be. I'm going to fade right back through. And then from here, I'm going to go to the white and leave it open.
Are you doing this on the same layer as like the picture, or did you add another one?
Nope, complete separate.
Okay.
Separate layer. So if you do it on the same layer, when you print it out, you're going to print the whole picture too. So whenever you do a stencil, you want the stencil to be on a separate layer. Also, as you're drawing, what I'll do, I'll just take the eraser and I'll go through it and I'll reverse it. Because if I erase and erases the fucking photo behind, that shit can make you so angry. I've broken an iPad because of it. That's how fucking angry it'll make you. If you draw on the same layer, dude, it's fucking terrible.
Also, if you want to save time, bro, what I did was I created a pencil, and on the stroke path, I did the spacing like pretty far out. So like go to your technical pen, and then you can go to the stroke path, and you do the spacing. It'll make dots, so you don't have to like individually put them. You can just do like, yeah, like just like that. It saves so much time.
Yeah. So I was fucking with that for a little bit. For me, I don't know. For me, it's like I liked it. I did that a couple months ago and I had it. I liked it, but it's not, I don't know, it's not the same for me. I don't know why. I don't know why it's not the same in my head, but yes, I had this, I made this probably 3-4 months ago when I was messing with it. But the stencils I made, I didn't really like it. I liked more so, I like the dashes more than the dots for some reason.
Maybe because a little more free. You can actually like give a little bit of like a curve to it, probably.
Yeah, like it follows. Like the dots are just kind of clearly defined. Where if I want to come through here, I can still curve around it and have almost that solid line. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Then I don't have to switch in between pens as well. For me, I think it's quicker and more efficient if I just go dot, straight line, dot, instead of switching pens.
Okay.
For me. But yeah, every other artist in my shop, they'll switch between what you just said to do and what I do. So for them, it's like whatever the fuck is in the air that day type shit. Also, another way to do this, I'll show you after I finish the mouth. I'll come in here and I'll hit every little curve from here. Find this. And I'll come through here. This. Shit like that. And there's times I'll look at it again when I'm done, erase something and stencil it differently. Like you think you're running it right now. There's been times I print it, I place it, I'm looking at the stencil on the skin, then I look at the photo. I'm like, I don't like that. Because I know once I get to that part in the stencil, if it rubs away even a little bit, I'm going to be lost. So there's times I've gone back after it's printed in place and changed a couple things, went back into it. So not everything has to be perfect once you do it the first time. this, I'll come up with it. Up here. This is lighter. Fall that out. And another thing I'm learning is my eye sees different tones here. I see that change in tone there. When you zoom out, you can see a little bit better. Maybe not. I don't know how well you can see it there, but I see a change in tone here. Realistically, you don't have to get that exact because it's so minute. It's not going to matter when it's on skin. What I'm going to do is I'm going to dip the needle in the 20% wash. I'm going to dip it in my distilled water. I'm going to run through it just to soften it up. That's not something that's going to be so make it or break it. So a little shit like that line here, it's not necessary. I still like to do it, but it's not going to make or break the piece, essentially. Now, when I get here, this is a hard line. I'm going to hard line this out. Once I get to about here, this is where I'll start dotting it. Dot it through here. I don't like that at all. I'll start dotting it through here. I'll dot this again here. Coming down. And then what I'll do is I'll take this here. That's solid white, so I'm going to circle that. Got a harder line. I don't like that either. I don't like that. No. See, I'll fucking do it. I'll do it 50 fucking times. Yeah, see that I like. So now I hop around. You don't have to hop around. I hop around. It's just a habit I have. Okay. So now I'm going to create a line here. Here. You don't want to do too much also. If you do too much on your stencil, it's going to be hard to read. But this is a solid tone I need to come in with. Here. Here. And now instead of doing all these little fucking pieces, because that's not really going to matter on skin fucking 5 years down the road, you're not going to be able to see it. Let me check and see if I got to let someone in again. No? All right. Now, once I'm here, I don't need to fucking circle all of these little things because that's not going to matter 5 years down the line. That detail's not going to be there anymore, realistically. But that needs to be highlighted because that's not going to be solid black off that line. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to add that in here. I'm going to bring that up because this is dark. I'm going to create a little bit more space with that. Coming back, yep. Create more space here. The reason I'm not staying true to the stencil right there is because sometimes it's more important, like same thing down here. Having the light tone in here is more important than having it perfectly exact to the photo. It's going to show way better on skin after doing that. Over here, I'm going to add one more here. Now, this is a highlight. So my eye sees, it sees this shading right here more than it sees the white underneath. But I know after doing so many, this highlight, it's more important to make sure you have this highlight outlined than it is the shading above it. So you got to be intentional when you're drawing the stencils, in my experience. So I'm gonna come down here with it.
Yo, Steven, can you let Darius back in? He had a phone call.
Yeah, I just checked. Oh, okay, facts. I was gonna say I saw he left.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, you're good.
Oh yeah, appreciate you. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come here. I'm gonna round this. Since I'm creating this light spot right there, I'm now going to come around and curve it a little bit more to match that. Now I'm going to bring this up. I don't want to do that yet. Yeah, I don't want to do that yet. I'm gonna come here because that's a lighter tone. Let me bring this through here. Sometimes it's easier for me to run it like this. Also, the reason I'm like flipping it upside down and sideways and shit to create the stencil is because I'm not seeing it as a face. I'm seeing it as different shapes. So anytime you do realism, you're not tattooing a face. You're just tattooing shapes, right? So, for example, if you're doing, this is going to be the easiest example for me to run for you. If you're doing this here, there's a slight tone change here, right? This here is one shape. This here is another shape. So when you're shading, you're not shading a cheek. This is the mindset I have to have. You're shading shapes. This is a shape. This is a different shape. That makes sense? You have this as one shape. You have this as another shape. They're all shapes. So anything you do in realism, it's all different shapes. And then, like you said, from the nostril, this is going to be a hard outline. So I'm going to hard outline this here. And then, I don't know if you guys can see that is where the black ends, solid black ends. I'm going to dot it. And now I'm just going to come out here with it. Now this is a highlight coming through. But now I'm running that. Same thing. This nostril is going to be a hard outline here. And I'm just going to dot that through. There. Now this, I hard outline every time. No. Now this here. This. I don't like how this is shaded, so I'm gonna fucking come through there lightly. Let me get this highlight. This highlight. So I see that. I see this. That's relatively smooth there. There's another way to make stencils based on the reference photo that you have. There's a lot easier ways to make stencils. And I'm going to show you once I finish this up.
Yeah, what do you think of the apps that do it for you?
I don't even really do the apps, so let's see how. So now based on just the stencil that I created so far, you can see, I don't like, I guess that works. No, it doesn't. I'm gonna do this real quick. So with that, I like some of the apps, but some I really don't. Some don't do it very well the way that I've done it. Now, with the stencil I made, can you guys clearly see where everything is supposed to be placed intentionally? It's a clear map, right? Some of you, it should be you guys might not see what I see, which is honestly is kind of good because then you're going to have to be forced to create your own shit. But this, to me, that's a very clear stencil. The one thing I don't know right now is the shading on the nose right here. That, and then this looks empty. But if I look back at this, it's very fucking empty. If I toss this in here, what layer am I on? Yep. If I toss this in here, it's a little bit more clear. through here. And since I changed this, it has to be fucking empty. But I can highlight this a little bit better. So if I'm rocking that, that's a little bit better for me. So what I also have done and relatively do pretty often is I'll run, I don't know why these are separate. I'll run this. So I'll duplicate it 4 times. You don't need 4 times. You only need it 3 times. I'll duplicate it 4 times. What I'll do is I'll change this. I'll click this N right here. I'll go from normal to color dodge. And then I'll tap the actual picture. And then I'll click invert. Once you do that, you go to this up top and you hit Gaussian blur. You go no more than 4%. I typically stick with 3, if not right when it turns 4. So I'll do that. Now, after this, merge the top 2. And then you're going to hit the curves again. And I'll go in the middle right here, and I'll go down. And I'll kind of move to the right here. In the first quadrant, I'll typically end up. Now, this would be my stencil. I don't fully like doing this. It'll print out fine. I don't like doing this because I don't know where all the tones are. You can't see this. You can't see that fully, and you can't see this here fully. Right? So you can't see the shape of the cheek there. You can kind of see the highlight. You can kind of see this. Not really. You can't get all the detail of the lips that you would want to, but in some spots, like this will actually help you with the detail of the lips. If you look in here, well, that didn't fucking help you whatsoever. If you look in here, mainly this little detail I was explaining earlier that I'm not going to stencil out one by one. I'm just kind of do it by eye when I'm doing it. It gets all that in there for you. So there's some spots where it's good, some spots where I don't recommend whatsoever. Like the nose, if you don't know the anatomy of a nose, you're going to botch that shit just by going off of this stencil alone. So most of the times what I will do on majority of stencils, because the photos are typically pretty good, is I will use this and I will also use this. So if I don't like the detail on the lips, I'll take this stencil and I'll erase it. And I'll erase the lips from the stencil and I'll keep my hand stenciling for that. But let's say the top lip is better here. I'll take my stencil, or I won't even stencil it, and I'll keep that on. That kind of makes sense?
Hmm.
So mixing both stencils can help a lot. Hair, I'm indifferent with. It's kind of like a love-hate. Hair or fur, like if we do a tiger. Actually, yeah, this is actually a good example for that too. You guys kind of get how I stencil on this. I'll do one of the eyes too, so you have that as well. But like the way I just showed you how to stencil it like that, it's good, not great for portraits. For animals, I'll show you, it's phenomenal. Now, this, where am I at? So this, I'm going to outline this because this is the most apparent to me. I outline this. It's also very apparent to me. Now, even though there's not much tone difference here, I'm going to use all the way up to here. I'm going to go solid line on it because that is the shape of the eye. But down here, I'm dotting it. Come up to that. There is slight differences in here. Bring this all the way up. This outline here. Dot that up. Dot that up. Bring this up here. through, and then now I'm just create a very basic, essentially boundary with where I want to keep the white. Since you're not putting crazy detail in the eye, you can kind of do whatever you want with that. I don't want to constrict this because I want it to be smooth. I don't want crazy detail in the actual iris of the eye. Here, I'm going to highlight it a little bit there. And then for here, eyelashes don't have to be exact to the photo. I actually kind of prefer if you put more eyelashes in or just thicker eyelashes, emphasize a little bit. If you look at any woman now, regardless, most of them have their fucking eyelashes done. None of them are fucking real. None of them are realistic. Doesn't fucking matter. I'm not saying everybody, so please don't get offended to that. But when you see eyelashes, you think long eyelashes, you think thick eyelashes. You can create them. It doesn't have to be perfect to the photo. Allow it. On the bottom, go however you want with it. Like so. Up top. The only thing is there's a turning point in it. Like here, coming through. And this is going to stay black anyway, so I'm just going to go here. That's it. And a lot of the times when you're actually tattooing it, I wouldn't suggest packing this black and then doing eyelashes. I would suggest doing eyelashes to make that dark, if that kind of makes sense. So if you're doing these, I want you to come through with a liner, like a 7, depending on size. I would say like a 7. Come in with a liner and come through and just drop it down low here. Start through, have them intersect, come through. Because seeing these gaps in it, it's going to bring a lot to the detail in the eye. So you don't want to just pack that and go. Actually use that liner and intentionally put them in. Once you get down here, though, and a lot of references, it doesn't necessarily matter this far down because they get so long and together depending on the angle of the face. They're like right next to each other. So you can run something of that sort. Not this exactly. I don't know how I feel about that yet. I'll change that up a couple times. All right. Now I'm going to highlight this. And I use this line of the eyelashes to create this top line so I don't have to draw it. If you want to draw it, you can draw it, but you don't have to. But I am going to emphasize that highlight there. And then this through here as well. Right through here, I'm going to dot. I'm going to come back through top. And then that through. That through. I don't like that at all. There. And this actually looks like it's coming through here. One more there. This goes through here. Also, a lot of these photos, like this photo's AI, obviously, a lot of them aren't fully correct anatomically. So make changes where you have to. Like some things make sense, some things don't. Like I wouldn't put this harsh of a line here. Like I wouldn't shade this harshly here and then leave this all the same tone and have it dumb harsh here. That doesn't make sense to me. That's not gonna look good on skin. This is gonna pop out so much more than you think. So I wouldn't do that as harsh as that is. I'd bring it here and I would keep a soft line through here coming through. That's what I would do, because it all needs to be blended one way or another. Come here, and then emphasize this here.
For the cheekbones, how do you go about like getting that like roundish look to it? Of course, I've been told that it's like directional shading, but how do you go about it?
Directional. I run directional. So
Yeah.
I'll do my main shading. Let me see if I have anything kind of like, nope. Let me see. I would come in kind of like this, and I'd come through. Let me drop this down a little bit. I would come through and I would build it up. So like if I'm doing the jaw, for instance, I'm gonna have my mag. I'm gonna use my mag not flat like this. So don't think I would use it like that. I'd probably do it on this sort of angle. I kind of run it on this kind of angle. I go on a 45. So I'd thin my mag out and I'd run it side. Like how do I explain this without having a mag in front of me? I'll show you guys, but I'll run my mag directionally here. So I'll go this direction there for the jaw. And then what I'll do is, since this is all kind of shaded, I would run it about this way. And I would build up. From here, I'd build in like this. And I come across like that. So I'm doing that, but to soften it up and to actually smooth it out, I'm going the opposite direction with the lightest tone I have.
Okay.
So I'm going to hatch everything that I do. So I'll come through here. I'll come through here to do that. And then now I'm back directional here. And then that's going to flow me right back into going directional again. So directional is damn. See, that's why you check what fucking layer you're on. That's why you check that shit. So also, if you hold your two fingers down, it like speed runs it. Yeah, for me, it's directional. It's all directional. So like, I guess another reason I like to do these like hashes instead, I know what direction I was drawing it in. So I knew what direction I was drawing it in. So that kind of puts me in the mindset of shade this way. If I see the hash just going that way, that kind of makes sense. Like I think that's why I lean towards doing hashes instead of dots, because dots are just there where hashes kind of show direction already. That's kind of why I go about it. But yeah, if I'm shading, I use a really large mag. So I'll run like depending on the size of the face, I'll run like a 23 or a 25 in this area. Actually, I can kind of create a map for you. I'll run a 23 or a 25 in this area. I'll run in here. I'll run kind of like a 13 or a 17 through here. All curve mags. This side of the face, all through here. I'm running a 23 or a 25. Any smaller details here, I'm using a liner. I'm using a liner on these. So I'll stipple it, or I'll just run like a 3 or a 5 on a low voltage. So I typically run my machine at 7 or 7.5. I'm leaning more towards 7 now with the curved mags, but when I throw a liner in there, I'll run 5 or 5.5, and I'll just hit these details to get them right. So in the lips, I'll run an 11 curved mag or a 3-round liner. In this, I'll also run kind of like a 23. And then in here, I would run a 13. Anything outside of the eye, I'm running a 13. Or even in here, I'll run an 11. That fucking forehead is going to be a 23 or a 25. Any large spaces that are smoother shading, I'm running a larger mag. You're going to get it done quicker, and you're going to get softer grays. So if you don't know already, if you're trying to pack, if you're going for softer grays, larger surface area being taken up hits the skin softer. It takes more effort and power to get through the skin, through the layers. So if you're using an 11 compared to a 23, if you use a 40% gray wash, it's going to come out darker using the 11. because it's not facing as much resistance. That kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll use larger curve mags on larger areas. I'll even feed this through with the 23, this through here. This is an 11. All of this, I would say, is an 11. This is a 13 or a 17. Say again? My fault. So here, 13, 11. Or a liner. Like, I don't know if someone's mic is on or if someone's trying to ask me a question. I have no idea. But yeah, that's kind of how I approach it with the mags. And my basic setup is 13. I'll go 11, 13, 17, 23, and then a 3-round liner. For a portrait, any portrait, that's what I'll run. If I want to run thicker eyelashes, I'll choose a 5 or a 7-round liner. It's kind of rare that I use round shaders just because I've gone so long without using them. I just don't really implement them as much. This is the rough roadmap for what I would do. Very, very rough. And then for hair, I would use the 3-round liner to start this, and then I take over with the mag once I get out of creating the sharp peak. Same thing right here. I'd use a liner there, but I would use a mag here and here because there's really no peak here until you get here, if that kind of makes sense. Hair is a whole nother fucking game I'll go through when we get there because it took me a while to learn hair, and I know it'll take everybody else a while to fucking learn hair because that shit sucks. Learning it sucks, but once you get it, it's fucking awesome. So for the stencil, can you guys read that pretty decent? Yeah. But obviously change what you need to change, but this would be my roadmap. Doing something like that. And then for tigers or lions, I do this. I do this every time too. Let's do. Don't like that one. I'm very picky with my photos, if you couldn't tell already. Do like simple enough. They're all fucking blurry, which is dog shit. This one's a little better. So and that's a drawing, so I wouldn't use that for an actual fucking tattoo because it's not a real photo of them. But it's clear enough where you will understand what I'm doing with the stencil. If I'm running this, what I'm going to do is, again, same thing with the curves. Or I'm going to make sure it's black and gray first. So always, even if it looks black and gray, go into your hue and saturation and go all the way down on the saturation. Because if you're using curves, if there's any color in it, it's going to pick it up. So you want to cut that down as much as possible. I'm going to make it brighter, make it darker. Not that much. I'm going to bring it here and here. So you can still see all the changes in the strands here. This is where I'm going to use this method. Go to the color dodge. Go to the invert. And then I'm going to blur it because these come out phenomenal. If you're like me, hitting every single fucking detail. The only thing that it will not do is the tones. Like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a layer. I'm going to create a layer. I'm going to come in like, come on. I'm going to come here. And I'm going to create with a thicker line. I'm going to identify these tones and shades because it will not show you on that stencil. It'll just show you direction for where the fur has to go. In here is darker. here is darker. Create a line in here. Like that, because that's darker. This is a change in tone. This is a change in tone. If you do not have this, you don't know where those are. See how you cannot tell from this stencil? You just add those lines to where it changes. Now you can understand where the tones have to go. Same thing down here. If you look down here, you want to identify these changes in tone. Because even though it seems pretty fucking apparent, the second you take this red away, can't tell. So those are the little fucked up parts of this stencil process. Using this to make a stencil, you still need to identify those parts. Like me, sometimes I'll go right through and redo the eye completely and erase the eye from the stencil. But the reason I like this so much is because you still see these strands. And I'm not going to take all day to fucking... Do you know how long it would take to stencil that? Each strand of hair, it would... Fuck the tattoo. You ain't getting it that day. Like, that's how long that would take. So those are primarily the ways that I will create the stencils. Yeah. How long is this? What, hour and a half so far?
For animal fur and stuff, is that all just like with having the mag sideways?
For me, yeah. It's all manipulation for the mag. Complete mag manipulation. That's what I would say. Because once you learn, because it's not just taking it and running this, it's knowing when to pluck from the corner through instead of just slicing. If that kind of makes sense. Like a lot of the hairs, I'm not gonna just fucking just go like that with and just keep going. I'm gonna use the corner of, like, for this, probably a 13 for majority of it. I'm gonna run the corner of the 13 using 2 or 3 needles, and I'm gonna pluck that straight through, create like zigzags, come out kind of thing. But yeah, it's all mag manipulation, 100%. I would say fur and hair are the 2 most difficult things I had to learn. So learning it, now that I have it, you'll never forget it. Like, once you hit it on skin, you'll never forget it. But yeah, regarding the stencils, that's my main stencil process. That's it. For animals, for portraits, for lettering, that's how I would go. Preferred lettering, fonts, download the font so you have it. So you don't have to keep redrawing it every time just for efficiency's sake. You're going to want to have those fonts downloaded. But yeah, any questions, I'll happily fucking answer. Anything y'all got? Oh, yeah.
Hi.
What's up?
What's up? How do you approach male portraits?
Male portraits, same
Yeah.
thing as female portraits. If there's facial hair, it's the same thing. Like, I would use, let me see, because now I'm going to share it again. I'm going to show you. Essentially, I would do the same thing. The only, like, primary male portrait that I've done is Jesus. Like, nobody else really wants a male portrait unless it's like a Spartan or something like that, at least where I like my style. Not a lot of people ask me specifically for male portraits. The ones that I've done, it's the same exact process as the female, less emphasis on the lashes, less emphasis on making the eyebrows perfect, and facial hair. The only difference would be facial hair. So with the eyelashes...
Sorry. What about the lips?
Lips?
Yeah.
Let me see. The same process in the stenciling. Let me see if we can find a good photo so I could share again. Yeah.
I'm asking this because the lips seems to me that they are easier to draw if it's a woman because of makeup, and it's easier.
Exactly.
So if it's a man,
male,
I don't know how to do it.
Male, it's going to be the way you kind of look at it. I wouldn't look at lips from like an actual like visual like mental perspective of male and female. Just kind of look at the lighting. Look at the lighting on the lips. So the shape of the lips are relatively the same across male and female. Females are a little bit more voluptuous. So you're going to have, it's going to be darker here on females because the lip is going to have more volume to it when it's poking out. So let me screen share real quick again. I'll kind of show you. So with this, you have, that's still blurry. It's not even a good photo. If you go with, I don't like that photo. If you go with something like this, let's say, compared to I mean, they're kind of relatively similar. So if you go with that, and I don't like that one actually. Yeah, I don't like any of these fucking photos. If you go with that and you go with this, the only difference is, to me, the only difference is the main shape of the lips.
Facial hair?
Say again?
Facial hair?
With this?
Yeah.
Yeah, big difference is going to be the facial hair. But with the lips specifically, like with having the facial hair, you're not focusing as heavy. Go ahead.
No, my question is regarding, for example, a portrait of someone, of a man that do not have facial hair.
So we'll find a different one then. So let's go with, no, let's go with, yeah, see, that really fucking helps. I mean, this is AI, but
yeah,
it's too blurry. Fuck, let's see how long it takes to find a fucking photo.
they all have facial hair.
Every single
What's wrong with them?
Every single
They
one.
don't check.
This one's better, but it's very blurry.
Okay.
So this one could work. I don't like the way he's fucking looking at me, so I'm not gonna use that one.
But see, for example, this guy he looks like a girl, some
like even
not a girl. But...
Go ahead. Like if you run this compared to this,
yeah, okay.
If you're running these two,
the volume of the lips.
The biggest thing would be the volume of the lips. Yeah. So it's the shape and the volume. These lips, I mean, even these lips, I don't fucking, now that I'm looking at these, I don't even fucking like these lips. I'm just going to use this. I'm just going to use this how I did before. It's mainly the volume and the shape. So with male portraits, from what I've experienced, this, I'm not going to be able to do it unless I do it the same way. There's not as much emphasis and change in tone. So some portraits I stencil in color because you can't tell the difference in hue from black to gray, or with black and gray. But with this, you have this general shape here, where here you can't even hard outline it because the lighting is all through there. But the lip is here. So the only thing you can do is emphasize that through this, making this a little bit darker. Emphasize that shape coming through. Because it's not as voluptuous as this, it's not as defined, right? So that's right on the layer. See, so this is another example of why I use different layers. So that's the main difference between the lips, is going to be the shape because it seems that men's lips are longer here to here compared to here to here.
Yeah.
Like the ratio is very different. You have this and this compared to this. Oh, compared to that, and top point to bottom point that. You have so much more height here, even with the mouth closed, than you do here. So the biggest thing is going to be emphasizing this a little bit, and emphasizing the tone of the bottom of the lip a little bit. So me personally, I would come in a little bit further here to define that shape. And then over here, I would make it a little bit darker on the bottom of the lip here.
Defining more male characteristics like the chin.
Yeah, I would emphasize, not necessarily emphasize the chin, but this space here creating the shadow. I would make it a little bit darker than the photo, because here it's much more drastic. Here it's much more drastic on any female portrait. Another big thing, this highlight on the bottom of the lip, right here. You see that highlight in here?
Yeah.
You're not going to have that here. So that's a big difference as well. But overall, you're going to get your shape from these highlights and keeping this dark.
Okay.
Overall, it's the same rule. Like overall, it's the same rule, just very different shapes. Like there's different things you want to emphasize on a man compared to a woman. Like men, you want to emphasize the jawline a little bit more. And then the lips, I would just say darken this up a little bit.
Okay.
That's what I would say. Focus around the lips rather than on the lips directly.
Otherwise, I guess I haven't done it, but my fear would be that it would seem like a girl.
Like more feminine?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why you don't want to emphasize it too much. Or essentially, like another big thing is white highlights. This is all going to be skin tone. You're not going to use any white in the lips. Here, you want to use white in the lips because they have some sort of lipstick or lip gloss or something on in the photo. You're not emphasizing it the same here. You're just leaving it skin tone, even a light gray at that.
Okay.
Yeah, same thing up here. You don't want to use white here either. But you are going to use some white here in the nose, and then same thing in the eyes. I would use it in these spots to emphasize that. With a woman, you kind of want to look at the lips, so you're going to emphasize the white and kind of make your eye go there. Men, I would say direct it to the eye. That's what I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Did that help? Did that answer the question?
Yes, you did. I think there is other with a woman. It's difficult. Well, it's difficult, but you have to be careful to put shades here where.
You don't want to emphasize on a woman. You don't want to emphasize masculine traits.
Yeah.
You want to emphasize feminine.
And you could do that with a man, so maybe.
Yeah. If you highlight the wrong place, you can do it on a man. 100%. Yeah, that's what I would do. The lips.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Anybody else? If not, I'm gonna wrap it up. All of this was recorded, so this is also going to be in the classroom, so you can go back and watch and look. I'm going to do a couple other stencils, and I'm just going to have the Procreate file uploaded on, or just some of my previous stencils I'll have uploaded, like, for instance, the skull. I'll upload this with everything behind it, so you can see why I placed it where. For instance, I don't know why this layer is actually on top, but I'll share all of these so you guys can kind of look and see why I did what I did, why I placed it, all that type of shit.